The arrival of the unseen. Captain Lyra stood at the edge of the bustling spaceport, her heart racing with anticipation and anxiety. The air buzzed with energy as ships landed and departed in a symphony of mechanical whirs and distant voices. Today marked a turning point in her life, a day she had been both eagerly awaiting and dreading. The government had issued her an alien companion, a decision that stirred mixed feelings within her. "Captain Lyra," a voice called out from behind her. She turned to see Commander Voss approaching, his expression serious yet tinged with curiosity. "Are you ready for this?" Lyra nodded slowly, her gaze drifting back to the sleek transport ship that had just docked. "I suppose I have no choice but to be ready," she replied, trying to mask her uncertainty. "Remember, this is an experiment," Voss reminded her gently. "The government believes that integrating aliens into our ranks will enhance our capabilities." As the ramp lowered and figures emerged from the ship's interior, Lyra felt a wave of apprehension wash over her. Among them was Zane, an alien whose features were both fascinating and unsettling, a blend of colors that shifted like liquid metal under the light. "Welcome, Captain Lyra," Zane said smoothly, his voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre that sent shivers down her spine. "I am here to assist you in any way you see fit." Lyra studied him closely, his eyes were deep pools of shifting hues that seemed to read her thoughts before she even spoke them. "What exactly can you do?" she asked cautiously. Zane smiled, a gesture that felt both inviting and enigmatic. "My abilities include enhanced perception, tactical analysis, and, if necessary, combat support." "Combat support?" Lyra echoed incredulously. "You mean you're designed for warfare?" "In a manner of speaking," Zane replied nonchalantly. "But my primary function is to serve as your partner in whatever tasks you undertake." Lyra felt a knot tighten in her stomach at the word partner. She had always operated independently, relying on someone, or something, else felt foreign and uncomfortable. "Let's get started then," she said abruptly, turning on her heel and heading toward the command center. As they walked side by side through the corridors filled with personnel bustling about their duties, Lyra couldn't shake off the feeling that everyone was watching them, her as the human leader and him as the alien anomaly. The whispers followed them like shadows. "Captain," Zane said suddenly, breaking through her thoughts. "You seem troubled." "I'm not troubled," she retorted defensively. "I'm just adjusting." "Adjusting can take time," he replied calmly, his gaze unwavering. Lyra shot him a sidelong glance, he was so composed it was unnerving. "You don't know what it's like to be human," she snapped. "Perhaps not," Zane conceded smoothly. "But I am here to learn." They entered the command center where screens flickered with data streams and mission briefings filled the air with urgency. Lyra took her place at the central console while Zane stood beside her, observing everything intently. "Today's objective is straightforward," Lyra announced to her team gathered around her, mostly seasoned officers who eyed Zane with skepticism mixed with curiosity. "We're conducting reconnaissance on Sector 9B due to unusual energy readings detected by our satellites." Zane leaned closer to Lyra's console, analyzing data as it streamed across the screen. "The readings suggest artificial manipulation," he noted thoughtfully. Lyra raised an eyebrow at him but continued with the briefing. "We'll split into two teams, one will survey from above while another will investigate on foot." She hesitated before adding, "Zane will accompany me on this mission." Murmurs rippled through the room, some officers exchanged glances filled with doubt about having an alien in their midst during a potentially dangerous operation. "Any objections?" Lyra challenged them outright. Silence fell over the group until Lieutenant Eric finally spoke up hesitantly, "Captain, are we sure this is wise? We don't know what kind of capabilities he has." Zane turned his attention toward Eric, his expression unreadable but his posture relaxed. "I assure you my intentions are aligned with Captain Lyra's objectives." "See?" Lyra interjected quickly. "He's here to help us." With reluctance still hanging in the air but no further objections raised, Lyra concluded the meeting and prepared for departure. As they boarded their ship, a sleek vessel equipped for both atmospheric entry and space travel, Lyra felt a mixture of excitement and dread coursing through her veins. She took her seat at the controls while Zane settled beside her with an ease that belied his alien nature. "Ready?" she asked as they prepared for takeoff. "Always," he replied simply. With a flick of switches and a press of buttons, they launched into the sky above their home planet, a beautiful blue orb shimmering against the blackness of space below them. As they ascended through clouds into open space, Lyra glanced at Zane out of the corner of her eye. He was focused on monitoring their systems but seemed attuned to everything around him, as if he could sense even the slightest shift in atmosphere or energy. "What do you think about humans?" she asked suddenly, surprising herself with her curiosity. Zane turned slightly toward her, his eyes sparkled like stars in deep space. "Humans are fascinating beings, capable of great creativity but also profound conflict." "That sounds like something out of a textbook," Lyra replied skeptically. "Perhaps," he admitted with a hint of amusement in his tone. "But I have observed many things during my time here." "What have you observed about me?" she probed further despite herself. "You are strong-willed but hesitant to trust others," he stated matter-of-factly. Lyra bristled at his assessment but couldn't deny its accuracy. Trust had always been difficult for her after years spent navigating treacherous political landscapes within military ranks. As they approached Sector 9B, tension filled the cockpit, energy readings spiked on their monitors indicating something unusual lay ahead, a potential threat or discovery awaited them just beyond their reach. "Prepare for descent," Lyra commanded as she adjusted their trajectory toward an uncharted area below where energy fluctuations danced like fireflies in darkness. Zane's fingers moved deftly over controls next to hers without prompting. Together they maneuvered through atmospheric turbulence until they broke through layers of cloud cover, revealing an eerie landscape below, a vast expanse dotted with strange structures emitting pulsating lights against an otherwise desolate backdrop. "What is this place?" Lyra whispered under her breath as awe washed over her senses mixed with apprehension about what lay ahead. "I believe we're about to find out," Zane replied cryptically as they descended further into unknown territory. Shadows of the past. Dr. Eloan stood at the entrance of the abandoned research facility, her heart pounding in anticipation. The structure loomed before her, a relic of a time when exploration and innovation were at their peak. Now, it was a decaying monument to forgotten dreams, swallowed by nature's relentless advance. She adjusted her glasses and took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. "Are you sure about this?" Commander Yarrick asked, his voice laced with concern as he surveyed the crumbling edifice. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a weathered face that spoke of countless missions in hostile environments. "This place gives me the creeps." Eloan smiled faintly, appreciating his protective nature. "We need to understand what happened here. The energy readings from this facility are unlike anything we've encountered before. It could be significant." Yarrick nodded reluctantly but followed her inside as she activated her handheld scanner. The device hummed to life, casting a soft blue light that illuminated the darkened interior. Dust motes danced in the air, and the scent of mildew filled her nostrils as they stepped into what had once been a bustling laboratory. "Look at this," Eloan said, kneeling beside a shattered console covered in grime. They were conducting experiments on energy manipulation. Her fingers traced the remnants of data pads scattered across the floor, their screens cracked but still flickering with residual power. "Do you think it's connected to the recent anomalies we've detected?" Yarrick asked, his brows furrowing as he scanned their surroundings. "Possibly," Eloan replied, excitement bubbling within her. "If they were experimenting with energy sources, it might explain why we've been seeing irregular readings across the sector." As they delved deeper into the facility, they uncovered more remnants of past endeavors, broken equipment, faded charts pinned to walls, and even personal belongings left behind in haste. Each discovery added weight to Eloan's conviction that something extraordinary had transpired here. "Dr. Eloan," Yarrick called out suddenly from another room. She hurried toward his voice and found him standing before a massive chamber sealed with heavy doors. "What did you find?" she asked breathlessly. "I think this is where they conducted their most critical experiments," he replied, gesturing to the reinforced entryway. "But it looks like it hasn't been opened in years." Eloan's heart raced as she approached the door controls. "Let's see if I can get it open." She began working on the panel, her fingers flying over the interface as she bypassed security protocols that had long since become obsolete. With a final beep and a hiss of hydraulics, the doors slid open to reveal an expansive chamber filled with strange machinery and glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The air crackled with energy, and Eloan felt an electric thrill run through her veins. "This is incredible," she whispered, stepping inside cautiously. The walls pulsed with light as if responding to her presence. Yarrick followed closely behind, his expression shifting from skepticism to awe. "What do you think they were doing here?" Eloan approached one of the larger machines at the center of the room, a complex array of circuits and panels that seemed almost alive. "It looks like they were trying to harness energy from these crystals," she mused aloud. "But something must have gone wrong." Suddenly, a low hum filled the chamber, growing louder until it resonated through their bodies. Eloan exchanged worried glances with Yarrick as lights flickered ominously around them. "What did you do?" Yarrick asked sharply. "Nothing. Eloan began but was cut off by a blinding flash of light erupting from the machine. They shielded their eyes as tendrils of energy spiraled outward like lightning strikes across the room. The ground trembled beneath them, and Eloan stumbled backward into Yarrick's arms. "Get back," he shouted as he pulled her away from the machine just as it erupted in a shower of sparks. The energy dissipated almost as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind an eerie silence punctuated only by their heavy breathing. Eloan's heart raced as she glanced around, everything seemed intact despite the chaos that had just unfolded. "What was that?" she gasped. "I don't know," Yarrick replied warily, scanning for any signs of further danger. "But we should be cautious." Eloan nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "We need to analyze this equipment further, there might be data logs or records that could explain what happened here." As they began searching through scattered papers and debris for anything useful, Yarrick suddenly froze mid-motion. "Eloan," he said quietly. "What is it?" she asked without looking up. "Look at this." He held up a small data chip he had found buried under some rubble. It was covered in dust but still intact. Eloan's eyes widened as she took it from him carefully. This could contain vital information. She hurried over to one of the consoles still operational and inserted the chip into its port. The screen flickered to life, displaying lines of code interspersed with fragmented notes detailing experiments conducted on energy manipulation, some successful but many marked by warnings about instability and unforeseen consequences. "This is amazing!" Eloan exclaimed as she scrolled through files rapidly. They were attempting to create sustainable energy sources but ended up destabilizing them instead. Yarrick leaned closer to read over her shoulder. "And these notes, they mentioned something about an extraction protocol. What does that mean?" Eloan frowned thoughtfully as she continued reading. "It seems they were trying to extract energy directly from these crystals at an unprecedented scale. Something must have gone wrong during one of their experiments." Suddenly, another alarm blared throughout the facility, a piercing sound that echoed ominously through its halls. "We need to get out of here," Yarrick urged urgently. "No. We can't leave yet," Eloan insisted stubbornly as she continued scanning through files on the screen frantically. "We're so close to understanding what happened." "Understanding won't matter if we're trapped here." Yarrick shot back, glancing nervously toward the exit where shadows danced ominously along its edges. Just then, another surge of energy rippled through the room, lights flickered erratically overhead while vibrations intensified beneath their feet. Eloan! Yarrick yelled again as he grabbed her arm firmly and began pulling her toward safety against her protests. No! Wait! She struggled against him but felt another tremor shake through their surroundings, this time more violent than before, and finally relented under his grip. Together they raced toward the exit just as debris began falling around them. Dust clouds billowed up like smoke, obscuring their path ahead until visibility was nearly zero. Keep moving! Yarrick shouted above the din, his voice barely audible over crashing sounds echoing behind them like thunderclaps in an approaching storm. They burst through the doors into fresh air outside, their lungs filling with relief even amidst chaos swirling around them, but not before catching sight of something extraordinary, glowing crystals erupting from beneath cracked earth where once stood solid ground and now crumbling away underfoot, revealing hidden depths below. What have we unleashed? Eloan whispered breathlessly as they stumbled away from danger into uncertain futures. Ahea. The game of trust. Lieutenant Rhea stood at the edge of the command deck, arms crossed tightly against her chest as she watched the crew bustle about with a sense of urgency. The atmosphere was thick with tension. They were on high alert following the recent reports of alien encounters that had left many in the fleet rattled. She had always been a skeptic when it came to the government's initiatives involving aliens, and today was no different. "Lieutenant," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Orion, a rogue AI who had recently been integrated into their systems, approaching with his usual nonchalant demeanor. "You seem troubled." Rhea raised an eyebrow, not in the mood for his banter. "I'm not troubled, just concerned," she replied curtly. "Concerned about the new alien partner assigned to you?" Orion asked, his digital eyes flickering with curiosity. "I don't need a partner, especially not an alien one," she shot back, her voice hardening. "We've managed just fine without them." Orion tilted his head slightly, processing her words. "But what if this alien could enhance your capabilities? Perhaps even save lives? Or it could be a liability," Rhea countered, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "You don't know what these aliens are capable of. They could turn on us at any moment." "Fear is a poor foundation for judgment," Orion replied calmly. "You should give it a chance." Rhea sighed heavily, turning her gaze back to the view outside the ship's viewport. Stars twinkled against the blackness of space, but all she could think about was the uncertainty that lay ahead. They were scheduled to meet their new partner soon, and she felt unprepared for what that would entail. "Attention crew." Captain Lyra's voice rang out over the intercom, cutting through Rhea's thoughts. "We're about to receive our new alien partner. I expect everyone to treat them with respect and professionalism." Rhea rolled her eyes but kept her mouth shut as she watched Lyra stride confidently onto the deck, followed closely by Zane, the government-issued alien who had already made waves among the crew. Zane stepped forward, his appearance striking yet unsettling. His skin shimmered in hues of blue and silver, shifting like liquid metal under the lights of the command deck. He scanned the room with eyes that seemed to absorb everything around him. "Greetings," Zane said smoothly, his voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre that sent chills down Rhea's spine. "I am here to assist you in any way I can." Rhea's skepticism deepened as she observed him interact with her fellow crew members. Some were curious while others looked on with suspicion. She remained at a distance, unwilling to engage. "Lieutenant Rhea," Zane said suddenly, turning his attention toward her as if he could sense her reluctance. "I look forward to working with you." "Do you?" she replied coolly, crossing her arms tighter across her chest. "What exactly makes you think you can help us?" Zane tilted his head slightly, unfazed by her hostility. "I have been programmed with advanced tactical analysis and combat support capabilities. My purpose is to enhance your team's effectiveness." Rhea scoffed at his response. "And what if your enhancements put us in more danger than we already face?" "Trust must be earned," Zane replied evenly, his gaze unwavering. I understand your concerns and will do my best to prove my worth. Before Rhea could respond, Captain Lyra clapped her hands together to regain everyone's attention. Let's move forward with our mission briefing, she announced decisively. As they gathered around the central console, Lyra outlined their objectives, investigating strange energy readings from an uncharted sector that had recently become active. Rhea listened intently but couldn't shake off her unease about Zane's presence. Zane will accompany us as our tactical advisor, Lyra stated firmly. Rhea exchanged glances with her fellow officers, some looked intrigued while others remained skeptical, her feelings mirrored in their expressions. After the briefing concluded, Rhea found herself alone with Zane as they prepared for departure. You really think you can just waltz in here and take charge? She challenged him. I do not intend to take charge, Zane replied calmly as he adjusted equipment on his tactical vest. I aim to assist you in achieving our objectives. Well, I don't need your assistance, Rhea snapped back defiantly. Zane paused for a moment before responding thoughtfully. Perhaps not today, but there may come a time when my abilities could be beneficial. Rhea huffed in frustration but couldn't deny there was truth in his words. They were facing unknown dangers ahead and having additional support might prove useful, if only she could bring herself to trust him. As they boarded their ship, a sleek vessel designed for reconnaissance, Rhea took her place at the controls while Zane settled beside her in silence. The engines roared to life as they launched into space, leaving behind the familiar comforts of their base. The journey through hyperspace was uneventful until they reached their destination, a barren planet marked by jagged mountains and swirling dust storms below. Activating scanners now, Rhea announced as she focused on monitoring their surroundings. Zane leaned closer to examine the data streaming across the screen. The energy readings are fluctuating significantly, he noted, his tone serious now. We should proceed with caution. Rhea nodded but felt a flicker of annoyance at how easily he shifted from being nonchalant to serious. Did he even understand what it meant to be human? As they descended toward the surface, turbulence rocked their ship violently, alarms blared while warning lights flashed ominously across their consoles. Hold on! Rhea shouted as she fought against the controls to stabilize their descent. Zane quickly input commands alongside her. Together they managed to regain control just before touching down roughly on rocky terrain. Once they disembarked from the ship, Rhea surveyed their surroundings cautiously while Zane scanned for energy signatures using his advanced sensors. This way, he directed after a moment of analysis as he started moving toward a cluster of rocks emitting strange pulses of energy. Rhea hesitated before following him closely. Every instinct told her to keep her guard up around him, but curiosity gnawed at her as well. What do you think is causing these readings? She asked cautiously while keeping pace beside him. It appears there is an artificial source nearby, Zane replied without breaking stride. We should investigate further. As they approached the rocky outcrop where energy signatures intensified, Rhea felt an unsettling sensation wash over her, a mixture of excitement and dread that made her skin prickle. Suddenly, Zane halted abruptly and raised a hand for silence. Rhea felt her heart race as she strained to listen. There was something lurking just beyond their line of sight. What is it? She whispered urgently. I sense movement ahead, Zane replied quietly before stepping forward cautiously into view of what lay beyond the rocks. Before them stood a group of figures cloaked in shadows. They appeared humanoid but were distorted by an unnatural aura that radiated from them like heat waves rising off hot pavement. What are those? Rhea breathed incredulously as fear gripped her heart tightly within its grasp. I do not know, Zane admitted slowly but resolutely stepped forward without hesitation despite Rhea's instinctive urge to retreat. The conspiracy unveiled. Senator Talia stood at the head of the Senate chamber, her heart pounding as she prepared to address her colleagues. The atmosphere was charged with tension, whispers of conspiracy and betrayal had spread like wildfire among the ranks of the government. She had spent countless hours sifting through classified reports and testimonies, piecing together a narrative that could expose the truth behind the government's dealings with alien entities. Senators, she began, her voice steady but urgent. We are at a crossroads. Recent events have revealed a disturbing pattern that cannot be ignored. Our military has been engaging in operations involving aliens without proper oversight or accountability. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as her colleagues exchanged glances, some skeptical while others appeared intrigued. Talia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the uphill battle ahead. Evidence has surfaced indicating that government-issued aliens are being used not just as partners in our military but as tools for manipulation, she continued, her gaze sweeping across the room. We must ask ourselves, what is the true purpose behind these partnerships? Senator Grayson, a staunch supporter of the military's initiatives, rose to his feet, his expression incredulous. Are you suggesting that our own forces are colluding with aliens against us? That's preposterous. It may sound preposterous, Talia countered firmly, but I have documents here that suggest otherwise. She gestured to a stack of files on the podium before her. These files contain testimonies from soldiers who have encountered anomalies during missions, anomalies that coincide with the arrival of these alien partners. Grayson scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. You're grasping at straws, Senator. Those are just isolated incidents. Isolated? Talia pressed on, undeterred. What if I told you that there have been 23 pairs of elite warriors sent on routine missions who have never returned? What if I told you that they were all assigned alien partners? A collective gasp filled the chamber as her words sank in. Talia could see doubt creeping into some faces, but Grayson remained resolute. This is nothing more than fear-mongering, he insisted. We need these partnerships to strengthen our defenses. Strengthening our defenses should not come at the cost of our integrity, Talia replied sharply. We cannot allow ourselves to be pawns in a game we do not understand. Just then, a holographic projection flickered to life above her podium, displaying images of recent military operations alongside reports of energy fluctuations and strange occurrences tied to alien activity. The room fell silent as senators absorbed the information. Look at these energy signatures, Talia urged passionately. They're not random, they're structured and intentional. It's almost as if someone is orchestrating these events. Grayson shifted uncomfortably, his confidence wavering as he scrutinized the data displayed before them. I propose an independent investigation into these partnerships and their implications, Talia declared boldly. We owe it to our soldiers, and to ourselves, to uncover the truth. A murmur of agreement rippled through some sections of the chamber, but Grayson quickly interjected again. And what will this investigation achieve? More bureaucracy? More delays? It will achieve accountability. Talia shot back, her voice rising with conviction. It will ensure that we are not blindly following orders without understanding their consequences. As she spoke, Zane watched from a discreet corner of the chamber, his presence unnoticed by most but keenly felt by Talia. He had been summoned to provide insight into alien partnerships and was acutely aware of the tension brewing among human leaders. After Talia concluded her speech and returned to her seat, Zane approached her cautiously. Senator, he said quietly, ensuring no one else was within earshot. Your concerns are valid, but you must understand that not all partnerships are malevolent. Talia regarded him with curiosity mixed with skepticism. And how can I trust you? You're a product of this very system I'm questioning. I am also a witness to its complexities, Zane replied earnestly. There are factions within both human and alien societies that seek peace and collaboration rather than conflict. Talia considered his words carefully. She had seen firsthand how power could corrupt even the noblest intentions. I need your help, she said finally, lowering her voice further. If we're going to expose this conspiracy, I need access to your knowledge and any data you can provide about your kind's interactions with our military. Zane nodded slowly, sensing the gravity of her request. I can assist you in gathering evidence, but be cautious, there are those who would prefer this information remain hidden. Talia felt a rush of determination surge through her. She would not back down now. "Let's meet later tonight," she suggested. "I have contacts who can help us dig deeper into this matter." As they finalized their plans, Zane felt an unexpected sense of camaraderie forming between them, a bond forged by shared purpose amidst uncertainty. Later that evening, they convened in a dimly lit conference room away from prying eyes. Talia spread out documents across the table while Zane accessed encrypted files stored within his neural interface. "This is it," Talia said excitedly as she reviewed one particular report detailing energy readings from various missions involving alien partners. "These fluctuations coincide perfectly with each disappearance." Zane nodded in agreement as he pulled up additional data on his holographic display, patterns emerging that hinted at orchestrated events rather than mere coincidence. "Look here," he pointed out, highlighting specific coordinates linked to multiple missions where energy spikes occurred just before teams vanished without a trace. Talia leaned closer, her brow furrowing in concentration as she absorbed every detail laid out before them. "This could be our smoking gun," she murmured thoughtfully. "If we can connect these dots back to high command." Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the facility, a shrill sound echoing ominously through their secluded meeting space. "What's happening?" Talia exclaimed as they both jumped to their feet. Zane quickly accessed security feeds through his interface and grimaced at what he saw unfolding outside their door, guards rushing toward their location armed and ready for confrontation. "They've discovered our meeting," he warned urgently. Talia felt panic rise within her chest as footsteps grew louder outside. They were running out of time. "We need to leave, now," she shouted as they bolted toward an emergency exit at the back of the room. As they raced through darkened corridors illuminated only by emergency lights flashing red overhead, Zane led them toward an escape route he had memorized during previous visits to government facilities. "Stay close," he urged as they navigated tight corners and stairwells until finally bursting out into an alley behind the building where vehicles awaited them. Once inside one of the unmarked transports waiting for them outside, Talia took a moment to catch her breath while Zane activated stealth mode, a feature designed to evade detection from surveillance systems. "What now?" she asked breathlessly as they sped away from danger. "We gather evidence and expose this conspiracy before it consumes us both," Zane replied resolutely as he focused on navigating through city streets toward safety. Talia nodded firmly. There was no turning back now, this was only the beginning. A choice to make. The dim light of the command room flickered as Senator Talia and Zane reviewed the data they had gathered. The atmosphere was thick with urgency. They had uncovered a conspiracy that threatened not only their military but also the very fabric of their society. The stakes were higher than ever, and time was running out. "Zane, we need to get this information into the right hands," Talia said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "If we can prove that the government is using these partnerships for manipulation, we can stop it." Zane nodded, his expression serious. "I can access secure channels within the military's network. However, we must be cautious. There are those who will do anything to keep this information hidden." Talia felt a chill run down her spine at his words. "What do you suggest?" "We should create a backup of all evidence and distribute it to trusted allies within the Senate," Zane replied. "We need to ensure that if anything happens to us, the truth will still come to light." As they worked together, Talia marveled at Zane's efficiency. He moved with a fluidity that was almost mesmerizing, accessing files and encrypting data in mere moments. It was clear he was more than just an alien partner, he was a formidable ally. "Do you think we'll be able to convince them?" Talia asked, her brow furrowed with concern as she glanced at the screen filled with damning evidence. Zane paused for a moment, his eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that made Talia feel both comforted and anxious. People often resist change, especially when it threatens their power. But if we present irrefutable evidence, they may have no choice but to listen. Just then, the door burst open, and Commander Yarrick stormed in, his face flushed with urgency. Senator. We need to talk, now. Talia's heart raced as she exchanged worried glances with Zane. What's going on? I just received intel that there's a meeting scheduled tonight among high-ranking officials, Yarrick said breathlessly. They're discussing how to handle the growing unrest surrounding our alien partnerships. Unrest? Talia echoed incredulously. You mean the whispers of conspiracy? Yarrick nodded grimly. They're planning to take drastic measures to silence any dissenters, starting with you. Talia felt her stomach drop as she processed his words. So they know we're onto them? It's likely, Yarrick replied, running a hand through his hair in frustration. We need to act quickly before they can put their plans into motion. Zane stepped forward, his expression resolute. We must gather our allies and confront them directly. If we can expose their intentions before they strike, we stand a chance. I agree, Talia said firmly, feeling a surge of determination welling up inside her. But we need proof, something tangible that will force them to listen. Yarrick nodded in agreement. We have to get into that meeting and record what they say. But how? Talia asked, her mind racing with possibilities. Zane interjected thoughtfully, I can create a diversion while you two infiltrate the meeting room. My abilities will allow me to manipulate systems undetected. Are you sure about this? Yarrick asked skeptically. I've faced greater risks before, Zane replied calmly. This is about more than just us, it's about ensuring the safety of countless lives. Talia felt a swell of admiration for Zane's bravery. Then let's do it. As night fell over the city, they prepared for their mission under the cover of darkness. The three of them donned stealth gear designed for infiltration, dark fabric that blended seamlessly with shadows. Stay close and follow my lead, Yarrick instructed as they approached the building where the meeting was set to take place. The exterior was heavily guarded, security personnel patrolled the perimeter while surveillance cameras scanned every angle. Zane, Talia whispered urgently as they crouched behind cover. How do we get past them? Leave it to me, Zane said confidently as he stepped forward into view. Talia held her breath as Zane approached one of the guards with an air of nonchalance. He began speaking in low tones while gesturing toward a nearby alleyway. The guard seemed momentarily distracted by Zane's presence. Now! Yarrick urged as he and Talia slipped past unnoticed. Once inside the building, they navigated through dimly lit corridors until they reached the meeting room door, a heavy barrier adorned with intricate designs that spoke of authority. This is it, Yarrick whispered as he pressed an ear against the door. Talia felt her heart race as she glanced at Zane. He nodded reassuringly before activating a small device on his wrist that projected a holographic interface displaying security feeds from within. What are they saying? She asked breathlessly. Zane focused intently on the display, his brow furrowing as he processed data streams rapidly. They're discussing how to handle dissenters, specifically targeting those who have been vocal about alien partnerships. Talia clenched her fists in anger at their callousness toward lives at stake. We have to record this. Just give me a moment, Zane replied as he initiated audio capture through his device. Yarrick glanced around nervously before finally pushing open the door slightly ajar so they could hear better without being seen. Inside, several high-ranking officials were seated around an imposing table. Their voices were low but filled with tension. We cannot allow this unrest to continue, one official said sharply. If we don't act decisively now, we risk losing control over our operations, and our image. Another voice chimed in, perhaps it's time to eliminate those who pose a threat directly, starting with Senator Talia. Talia felt her blood run cold at hearing her name mentioned so casually among these conspirators. We'll make an example of her, another official suggested darkly. A public demonstration should suffice. Yarrick's jaw tightened in anger. He turned back toward Talia and Zane with wide eyes filled with urgency. We have to get out of here, he hissed urgently. Zane nodded quickly as he shut off audio capture but remained focused on monitoring their surroundings through security feeds. Not yet, Talia insisted fiercely as she leaned closer toward the door, her heart racing with determination despite fear clawing at her insides. We need more evidence. Suddenly, one official stood up abruptly and pointed toward their direction. Their cover had been blown. Get them, he shouted angrily as chaos erupted within the room. Talia felt adrenaline surge through her veins as she turned on her heel and dashed down the corridor alongside Yarrick and Zane, footsteps pounding behind them echoing like thunderclaps through narrow halls filled with uncertainty ahead.